Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. I'm so excited. I'm ecstatic today to be joined by a friend who's also become a confidant, Miss Shanice Wilson, singer, actress, songwriter, and even dancer. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to roll back the clock just a little bit and talk about kind of growing up in Pittsburgh and a musical family and how you sort of fell in love with the art.
Yeah. Yes, like you said, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my mom sings, my aunt sings, you know, my dad plays guitar, my stepdad, he is a singer as well. Wow. So, you know, I have cousins that can sing, and just my entire family is, you know, just in love with music and can sing. But when I was 7 months, my mom...
7 months old?
I was 7 months old. I kid you not, and my mom has it on cassette. I came out singing "Tell Me Something Good" by Chaka Khan.
Oh my
I was 7 months.
And Chaka's phenomenal.
Yes,
so
my first songs was "Benny and the Jets"
right.
by Elton John,
right.
"Jungle Boogie," Kool and the Gang, and Chaka Khan's "Tell Me Something Good." And I'm so glad my mom recorded that, because when I tell people the story, they don't believe it.
Okay.
And at the age of 3, my mom put me on stage for the first time with her band.
Right.
So I got to perform on stage at 3. And then at the age of 8 years old, we got on a Greyhound bus, moved to California, and Wanda from the Emotions picked me up from the Greyhound station. So that was like, that's the first, she was the first person out, like my family. She's my family. And so that was like the beginning of like my, you know, career, you know, meeting Wanda, Auntie Wanda. And so my mom and my aunt, they were in California, you know, to pursue their singing careers. Right. But then when we got here, I said, wait a minute, I want to do it too. Okay. So they found me a commercial agent, and I went out on my first audition, and it was to scat with Ella Fitzgerald in a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial.
Wow.
I was
How old were you?
I was 8 years old.
Okay.
I was 8 years old. I got the part. I remember my mom and everybody was so excited, and I didn't know why everyone was so excited, because at that time, I'm a kid. I didn't know who Ella was. And I did the commercial. She was a pleasure to work with. She was shocked that I was 8 and I was scatting. Like I was able to like scat with her. Right. So that was a plus. And then at the age of 10, I did a show called Kids Incorporated with Fergie, Rasan Patterson, and I was the keyboard player, and they had me as a backup dancer. Right. I left the show because they wouldn't let me sing. Right. So I left the show after the first season. Auditioned for Star Search, Junior Star Search. Won Star Search at 11 years old. Right. Did a musical and called Get Happy. The musical was about the music of Harold Arlen. Sure. He wrote Summer Over the Rainbow, all the Wizard of Oz songs. I did that musical. John McClain, who was at the time a big executive over at A&M Records, heard about me and came to hear me sing in the musical and signed me when I was 11 years old. Wow. So I was signed to A&M Records at 11 years old by John McClain. Right. And that was how it all began.
So it sounds like it was really, truly natural for you. Maybe some of the limelight and things like that really didn't mean as much. You were just singing and happily doing so because it was just something that literally came out of who you were and your whole family.
Yes, and it was cool because I know I hear a lot of, you know, parents, some parents will like force their kids to do it. Pressure. Like I wanted to do it. My mom wasn't a stage mom. Okay. As a matter of fact, before I signed my record deal, she asked me, she said, "You sure this is what you want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is what I want to do." You know, I would sit in my closet with my little cousin, and we would write songs together. We had a cassette player, and we would pretend like we were in a recording studio. I was like, at the time I was 6 years old. I was 8 years old, sorry. And we would sit and write songs together in the studio. So I knew at an early age that this is what I wanted to do. So when I got my deal, when I did the commercial and the plays and the this and the that, like I was excited. I was living my dream. And it was a great time for me.
Sure. People have said you're one of the few people that can sort of sing in that whistle register. Is that something that you realized, practiced, it just sort of came natural, you took it for granted?
You know what? In the beginning, I'm a huge Minnie Riperton fan.
Sure, yeah.
Like everyone. And when I first moved to California and signed to A&M Records, I did an album that the label never released, and it was the executive producer for that project was Dick Rudolph, who was Minnie Riperton's widower.
Right.
So he was one of the first like producers that I got to work with, and I used to listen to Minnie Riperton's songs all the time, and I used to try to hit the note, and at first it wouldn't come out. I started studying with Seth Riggs, vocal coach, and along with my mom's help, and just trying to hit that note, like just trying, and it's like your voice is a muscle, and like if you keep you keep massaging it and keep working at it, it gets stronger. And so I eventually I just started hitting it. I started doing like a lot of Seth Riggs exercises, and it just happened. But it wasn't. I can't say that I just opened up my mouth one day and it was just there. I mean, I had to work hard to do it.
Sure. Talk to us a little bit about that, though. Really being willing to put in the work, the time. You've mentioned some really great people that you worked around and with as a team, and really sort of that need to actually put focus into this as opposed to I'll just wing it.
Yeah. I put in a lot of time, a lot of rehearsing. And back then, record companies was really into artist development. You know, it wasn't just like, let's just throw it out there and see if it sticks. Like, you know, I had, I would take dance classes, I'd take acting classes, I'd take singing classes, even to do interviews. Motown Records literally brought in someone to help me do an interview. So yeah, it's like back then, like people worked at their craft. Like I'm not saying people don't do it now, but labels aren't as like stern about the whole package anymore.
Sure.
You know.
Talk to us about that concept of getting that first hit. Was it just sort of something that came naturally, or you really felt like, wow, we really put a great team together, and when I heard that song, I knew it was going to take off? Yeah,
I Love Your Smile was a part of my second album. My first album was in '87. I had a song called Can You Dance? That was an exciting time for me. But I Love Your Smile. I'm going to tell you a story, which is really funny. I co-wrote I Love Your Smile with Narada Michael Walden and his team. I thought it was a cool song, but I did not think it was the right first single. I told Gerald Busby, who was, rest in peace, he was the executive at Motown at that time, that I don't think I Love Your Smile is the right first single. And he told me, I'm putting it out and I'm not changing it. And I literally sat in his office at Motown and cried because I said, it's the wrong song. And I said, it's too happy. I said, it's too happy. People are going to think I'm corny. And I'm like, no, I don't like it. And he said, I'm not changing it. He didn't listen, of course. He put it out, and literally overnight, the record took off, like all over the world. It was like #1 in so many countries. So I was wrong.
And we've talked to some
people
about that. Is that okay? That sometimes the label, I've heard these stories about Clive and other people too, that they don't always write 100%.
Yeah, sometimes they miss it, but sometimes, I had to just say, okay. I had to let it go. I cried, but I said, okay, Drew, I trust you. But yeah, sometimes you just have to trust but I think I was right on the second single. I wanted the second single to be Silent Prayer with Johnny Gill, because Johnny Gill sang on that song with me. And he released a song called I'm Crying. And I said, Gerald, how can we go from smiling to crying? Like, But I thought Silent Prayer should have been a second single, because at the time, the Persian Gulf War was going on, and people needed, like the world needed prayer, and the song was called Silent Prayer. And Johnny Gill, we were label mates, and they had put his record out that was big, and Rub You the Right Way, and I said, it makes sense to put out a record with me and Johnny Gill. So he didn't. He put out a song called I'm Crying. So, and I love the song, it's beautiful, but I still think Silent Prayer should have been the second single.
Absolutely. Tell us sort of about those next steps, and as you felt like you were starting to mature, wanting to be able to have even more creative control and input into some of the selections and some of the things you were doing.
Yeah. On I pretty much thank God, like on all of my albums, I've had, I had some creative control as far as songwriting. So if you look at the credits, I actually got to write on a lot of the songs, which was like really cool because publishing is where, that's where you make your money. Being an artist is great, but when you write a song, like publishing lasts forever. Like I'll still go to the mailbox and get like a check for "I Love Your Smile" that was released in '91.
Right.
So, so pretty much, I always like tried to write on majority of my songs.
Sure. Talk to us a little bit though about like how that works, because I think a lot of people really don't understand, and they may not realize like sort of how it breaks down: singing versus taking somebody else's versus having creative production rights on it.
You know what? I think it's okay if somebody comes at you and there's a song that's already completed and you feel it like it's a hit and it fits. If you feel like it fits you and you can relate to it, then I don't feel like I wouldn't turn down a hit song just because I didn't write it. So there are a lot of songs that I didn't write on. So if it's a song that I feel fits the album and it fits my personality and who I am, I'm fine with that. But I love the writing process. I love collaborating with other people and coming up with ideas, because sometimes other people may come up with something I may not think of. So it's really cool to collaborate.
How did things change, and what things stayed the same as you now became a household name literally overnight?
To be honest with you, I was just really busy, like on and off planes. Like, I kid you not, when "I Love Your Smile" blew up, I would be in another country every other day. I was in a different country. Wow. I was like, so I was exhausted, but it was worth it. And I'm not complaining, but it's a lot of freaking work. I know people want to like, oh my gosh, I want to be famous, but you don't understand the amount of work that goes into that.
And what is some of that?
I mean, there's times where they would say, okay, you got to go to Japan, and I get off the plane and I have to go. After a 15-hour flight, you got to go straight to the radio station, or you got to smile and do an interview. After you're exhausted and you've been flying for 20 hours, like, stuff like that. It's just hard, but I had a really good team around me, and I think without my team, it probably would have been harder for me to get through it. Sure. But I had the best, like my dancers. Like one of my dancers is still my best friend to this day. And he just kept me laughing the whole time, even when I didn't feel like I was exhausted. He would make me laugh, and just made everything feel easier for me. Sure. So I think it's about having the right people around you, and I made it through. But I know a lot of people think that it's easy, and it's not. It's just a lot of work that goes into it.
Right. And it also seems like you did a great job of incorporating your family and being able to have support with them, and there really not being a lot of fighting. You were willing to use their wisdom and their advice and their experience to continue to flourish.
Yeah, and I have a wonderful family. I had my mom and Aunt Penny back then. Right. They managed me, and so I'm thankful that I was protected. Sure. And my grandmother was my tour manager. Sure. My grandmother used to travel with me and sleep in the same bed with me on the road. Wow.
Before you're married.
So it wasn't, this is when I was a teenager. So it wasn't like I was out like partying and, getting into bad things. Sure. I was, well protected. And at the time, I remember when I turned 18, I was like, I'm 18. How come I can't have my own hotel room? But now when I look back and I have kids, I'm so thankful that my family was so protective, because I'm looking at kids today, and they're doing drugs or having nervous breakdowns, and like when I look at Britney Spears, it makes me feel sad, because I feel like if she would have had the right. Something went wrong, like what I'm saying. I don't know if she just didn't have the right people, or if her mom and dad let her just go out on the road and didn't have protection around her. I don't know the situation, but I know that I'm glad that I was sheltered, and because I never experienced drugs, just never been around anything negative. It was just all fun and pure, and Yeah.
Writing good things. Do you feel like there were any challenges that you faced, whether it was going on to the next record label or just in the industry in general, as time continued to move on?
Uh, Everything was great. The only challenge that was really, really difficult for me is when I got married and I decided to have a baby, and I was happy about being pregnant and being married, but that's when I lost my deal.
Right.
You know, I don't know if they thought that I wouldn't be attractive anymore, or you know, I'm gonna gain weight, and you know, because it's all about the image and stuff. So that was really hard for me. I was literally 5 months pregnant. Right before I got pregnant, I was in the studio working on my next project.
Right.
I got pregnant, and when the label found out I got pregnant, I lost my deal.
Wow.
So that, I think, was the hardest for me. Because if you think about it, that's all I ever did was sing. Like, I signed my first deal when I was 11 years old.
Right.
I've never worked a 9-to-5 job. I've always made money, you know, through music.
Sure.
So that was very difficult for me.
Sure. How did that go down? Because a lot of times it seems so callous that the slightest thing can just end a contract that one would think is through at least a certain number of albums or a certain number of years.
How did it go down? I went to New York. I had a meeting with my label, and they're, you know, telling me, we're excited.
Right.
You're going to work on the next album. And I'm like, yay, let's get going. And they were telling me that the last album was so great. I wish we could re-release it because it was so great. And I'm thinking, but at the time, my stomach was out to here. I'm like 5 months pregnant, right? And I'm thinking like, yeah. And then when I got back home after that trip, I get a phone call from someone in the, you know, in the label, and they said, we think you're extremely talented, but we're just gonna have to let you go. First, I had gotten a phone call from someone saying that we're just gonna let you be a mom for a while. That's why I know it was the pregnancy.
Sure.
And I was just like, but nobody's gonna see me. I'm 5 months, and we're just starting the project.
Right.
By the time we finish it,
Right.
the baby will be born. No one's gonna see me pregnant. And then I get the next phone call is, we're gonna let you go. So that right there was the hardest thing for me.
And how did you process that? How did all of the support that you had up until that time kind of really come to bear between your husband, your family, and everybody to try to, because that's devastating for anyone who's put so much work and so many years into achieving
it was really, really hard. Like I went into like a depression. You know, I had my baby, and it was a happy time for me, but at the same time, it was very sad. I did a lot of crying, a lot of praying, and I was gonna give up. I was just like, I'm done. Like, I don't know what to do. And I remember I have a cousin who said, why don't you go on YouTube and just sing songs so that your fans can hear you sing, and sing other people's songs and just see if, you know, what they, you know, their reactions. So I did it. I went on YouTube and I just started singing, like, I sang Beyonce's If I Were a Boy, and I just started singing all these songs, and I got like over 7 million views. And I said, you know what? I guess people do want to still hear me sing.
Right, and appreciate music.
Yeah, so I said, you know what? Forget that label. I said, if I have to put out my own music myself, I'm going to get back out there. And I started my own label, and in 2006, I put out an album called Every Woman Dreams. And I mean, for it to be as independent as it was, we did really good. The project did really well. Gina Prince Bythewood directed my video, Take Care of You, and I had Monique was in my music video, and Derek Luke, the actor, and my friend Chandrella, and Flex was in the video. And it did really good. So that gave me the confidence to get back out there again.
Right.
I had a fan who would post these YouTube videos about me, and would go really hard, like would like, you know, if somebody had anything, the slight little thing to say negative about me, this fan would just always go hard. And that encouraged me too. I said, wait a minute, this fan really likes me. And so that helped me too.
What way, or in what way, do you feel like music maybe was your heroine then and helped pull you out of any sadness or sense of loss?
Yeah, when I was feeling really sad, I would just write, you know, my feelings and stuff, and it kind of, music is therapeutic, so it did help me kind of come out of my, you know, depression. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, I wrote a song about her called I Can't Imagine.
Right.
So I wrote about my daughter, and music actually saved my life. Yeah.
So the show's called Music and Medicine. When you hear that, what words mean, what does that mean to you? That it sort of can be a lifesaver? What way would you tie those together?
I think music is good for your soul. And I mean, you could be having the worst day, but if a happy song comes on, it could change your whole mood. I had so many people tell me that I Love Your Smile, like, helped them through their sad times. I've even had a woman, I had a song called Yesterday that was on my album I did on LaFace Records. And I had a song called Yesterday. And this woman, I kid you not, was about to commit suicide. She had a gun up to her head. She said, my music came on, and she put the gun down. She said, your music saved my life. So, like I said, music is therapeutic, and it saves lives.
Sure. And when you say it saved your life, what do you mean by that? Unpack that a little bit for us.
It's almost like therapy for me. You know, I needed someone to talk to, and so I'd say, let me just write it all out and sing about it. And it just kind of helped me through my depression. It's
Sure.
just being able to get my thoughts out there.
Right.
You know?
You've been very comfortable about sharing with me a few of the health things that you've faced. What are you feel some of the more difficult things that are really important for women to understand about the fact that you still have a career and lots of work, but your
I'm still
body can
human.
play tricks on you?
Yeah, I'm still human, and I've experienced a couple of scares. I have cysts. I get cysts in my breast, so like it's so important to get your mammograms and stuff like that, because one time I did a mammogram and they said, oh, this looks different. It doesn't look like a cyst, and it freaked me out. I was scared.
Sure.
And so they said, we want to do a biopsy. And I was like, a biopsy?
Right.
I went to
Scary
get the
stuff.
biopsy done. I went to another doctor. He went to do another test, and he said, what are we doing a biopsy on? You don't have a tumor or anything. There's nothing to do a biopsy on.
Right.
So that was really scary for me.
Which highlights the importance of second opinions.
Right. So I got a second opinion, and I actually went to, that's the place that was supposed to do the biopsy for the doctor.
Right.
But they said, before we do the biopsy, we want to just take one more test.
Make sure.
Thank God there was nothing there. But I also have dealt with fibroids, and I know a lot of women. For some reason, it's high, like a lot of black women, for some reason. In our community, we get fibroids. Like pretty much majority of my friends have fibroids. And I had fibroids for some years. I had really low iron. I had to constantly, have them checked.
Right.
And so one day I was taking a few herbs that kind of helped. It did help. I think changing your diet helps. But after a while, I just went and I just had surgery and I had them removed. But yeah, it's something that a lot of us deal with.
Causing too much pain.
Yeah, a lot of pain, and a lot of bloating. It made you look like my fibroid was so massive that I looked like I was maybe about 4 months pregnant. And they said my uterus was the size of a 4-month pregnancy.
Right, and you're right, they can get very, very large. Talk to us about sort of just the importance of regular checkups and seeing your doctor if things are painful, uncomfortable, changing.
Yeah, it's so important because you can catch things early, if you stay on top of your appointments and stuff like that. For me, I'm not gonna lie, when I had that scare, it made me afraid to go back to the doctors. I was so scared. But I have to force myself to do it. It's important.
Right. Yeah. And not avoid and hide and things like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've always been.
And then with my daughter, I had preeclampsia. So I was my daughter wasn't due for another 3 or 4 weeks. I went in for just a regular checkup, and my doctor said, you need to go to the hospital right now because you have protein in your urine and your blood pressure is dangerously high. You have preeclampsia. And I was like, what is that? She said, just go to the hospital right now. We're going to deliver today. So I went to the hospital, and we had to do an emergency C-section. After everything was, happened, I did, had the C-section. My doctor pulled me to the side after my baby was born, and she said, you must have had a lot of people praying for you because you could have died.
Wow.
She said you had blood clots in your placenta, and she said your baby was about to detach from you, and if that would have happened, you would have bled to death, and she would have lost oxygen.
Right. And again, you were going regularly and getting checked up.
I
and
was.
things
I
like
was
that
going for
during
my
your
regular, like
Right.
my checkup, like towards the end of your pregnancy, like once a week, you have to keep going in once
Yes.
a week. So I went in for my once a week checkup and rushed to the hospital.
Sure, no. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you feel comfortable accessing care and things like that, because that's just
Yeah.
something that we so encourage in the community. We realize that people are going to be afraid. We know there's some bad history in the past with the medical community as well, but it's so important, especially for prenatal care, that people go in on a regular basis.
Don't miss your appointments.
Yes.
Do not miss, if you're pregnant, do not miss your doctor's appointments, because that saved my life. If I would have said, oh, I'm not going to go in today, I'll just wait, and, I could have died.
Yeah. And certainly your baby too. And she's doing well and is healthy and looks great.
Yes, she's doing well. She's 21
Right,
now.
we saw her at the
She's
birthday
not
party. I couldn't believe
I know
it.
you came to her 21st birthday.
Right.
She's 21. My son is 18, so I don't have any babies anymore.
Absolutely. Tell us about the things that are on the horizon. I know you're always busy and touring and things like that, and sometimes even having to turn down engagements.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of shows. I'm excited. I'll be in D.C. on the 22nd at the City Winery in D.C. And then October 30th, I'll be at the City Winery in Chicago on the 30th of October. And then November 12th, I will be at the Toyota Arena in Ontario, California with Charlie Wilson, Keith Sweat, Jodeci, Teddy Riley. So I'm the only girl on the show, but I'm excited. The lineup is insane.
It's phenomenal.
So I'm excited about that. And also, I'm in a musical, and it's called 44.
Okay.
And I'm playing Michelle Obama
The President's Wife.
in
I
a
love
musical.
It. I love it.
So I get to do acting,
Yes.
and in the musical I get to sing, I get to act, and I'm excited about that. To play Michelle is an honor.
Right. To say the least.
I mean, she's amazing. I look up to her, so classy and smart, and just I love it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, she's
This is
regal.
Yeah.
I want to leave the young people with a pearl in terms of taking care of your voice.
Yeah.
And continuing, like you said, to perform and things like that. What are a
Yeah.
couple of secrets? You may not give them all away, but just a few.
You have to. So I feel like doing vocal exercises is important, because if you don't use it, you will lose it.
Right.
So you have to keep singing, keep vocal exercising. Smoking is a no-no. That if you want to ruin your voice, smoke.
Should be obvious. And vaping.
Yeah, vaping is bad. And then, I'll have a glass of wine every now and then, like if we have a birthday party or something like that. But I don't do a lot of heavy drinking.
Right.
That would dry out your voice, drinking. And another thing I want to tell you. So look, I'm telling y'all all my health issues. But I deal with acid reflux, and acid reflux will literally cut off your voice. I was on stage a couple years ago. I was trying to sing, and nothing would come out, and it was the most embarrassing, uncomfortable. Like, I wanted to literally, run off the stage. It was terrible. So then I talked to Kenny Lattimore after that, because Kenny and I, we were talking. He was telling me that happened to him on stage. And he said, I found out that acid reflux cut off my voice. So he said, you need to go to my doctor and see if you have acid reflux. I went to his doctor, and he put this thing down my nose, and he looked in my throat, and he said, your throat is bloodshot red. Your vocal cords are like bloodshot red. And I'm like, what? He said, you have a really bad case of acid reflux. So I've been treating that, and that helps a lot. But if you don't take care of acid reflux, you will lose your voice. So I try to drink apple cider vinegar, from Bragg's, with water. And I drink aloe vera. I take sea moss. I'm trying to do all the natural. If I have a really bad flare-up, I may take Nexium.
Sure.
But I try not to take too much medicine. I try to do it as natural as possible.
Sure, absolutely. Always so wonderful to see you. You've heard it from her. I couldn't say it any better. Staying on top of your health and really taking things that you notice that are going on with your body and your regular prenatal checkups could not be more vital, not only to your life, but potentially that of your baby.
Yeah.
But Shanice was kind enough to share other issues that can occur for any of us, and
Yes.
acid reflux is certainly very, very common, primarily caused by essentially if one drinks alcohol, which she doesn't, and that's great, but also there are other factors that can play a role. If the diet is full of too much acid, so many people have a low acid diet, things can flare up in the stomach. So please see your doctor regularly. Don't feel afraid to check into your health, because if you don't take care of your body, we can't expect anybody else to, but we want you to not feel afraid of seeing doctors, and when you're getting those signals, taking them seriously. We love having you. We appreciate
Thank you
you
for having
sharing.
me. I
Thanks so
really
much.
enjoyed this conversation.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.